313 dispatch. The whole bridge just fell down.
When a giant cargo ship rammed and collapsed the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, heroic efforts on the scene were immediate, as were the promises of support.
I've directed my team to move heaven and earth to reopen the port.
But more than a year after another transportation catastrophe in East Palestine, does the federal emergency response serve the people impacted?
Millions of Americans use CPAP machines to sleep better and manage health issues, but there are concerns about the machines themselves. What was the heart of the complaints about these CPAP machines?
Users were finding black particles, black specks, dust and contamination in their machines.
This week, we talk about the investigation and the results. Americans are spending more on health care, but we are sicker, dying sooner. Some of that could trace back to what doctors are being taught in medical school. Can you name a couple of quick hits as to things that you taught that turned out to be wrong?
In order to lose weight, exercise more and eat less.
We talk with a physician and teacher about how medicine has gone so wrong and his book, Lies I Taught in Medical School. Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. When disaster strikes, government agencies typically rush in to help, politicians pledging taxpayer money to make things right quickly so that lives and business can get back to normal. But whether it's the destruction of a key bridge or a train derailment that upends a tiny Ohio town, vows of help may be no guarantee that everything and everyone will be made right. Scott Thuman reports.
Hold all traffic on the Key Bridge. There's a ship approaching. Has just lost their steering.
With just seconds to spare, police stopped drivers from trying to cross the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, as a giant cargo ship that lost power topples the vital passageway, killing 6 workers on the bridge and effectively closing one of the busiest ports on the East Coast. Within hours, local, state, and federal agencies arrive on scene, and as daylight reveals the scope of the damage and what it will take to rebuild and reopen, the president instantly promising $60 million just to start.
It's my intention that federal government will pay for the entire cost of reconstructing that bridge.
A much different response than one seen at another infrastructure disaster last year, when 38 cars of a Norfolk Southern freight train derailed in the tiny town of East Palestine, Ohio. 11 tank cars ignited, 2,000 residents were evacuated. Rescue workers and state and federal government teams rushed to help. 2 days later, amid concern that the remaining tank cars could overheat and explode, the local fire chief made the call to release and burn toxic vinyl chloride. We recently returned to East Palestine to see how the town has recovered from its toxic transportation disaster. Misty Allison and her family left their home before the controlled chemical burn, but returned soon after, feeling relatively safe.
I can vividly remember seeing a news article a couple of days after we came home, and the article said something along the lines of, new chemicals were found on the train. And we were told that it was safe to come home, that the air was fine, the water was fine, the soil was fine, everything was fine, and that we were allowed to come home.
Chrissy Ferguson grew up in this house near the center of town, but when she visits her old home these days, it's just to collect the mail. She now lives 10 miles away in Columbiana. She recently injured her neck in an auto accident.
We have the contaminated creek run underneath our home, and the water comes in daily through a floor drain. We still are not back in our home. There's 6 in my family. I'll never feel safe in this home again. In my opinion, it cannot be cleaned.
After the disaster, a parade of political leaders and officials, and the governor trying to reassure about water quality. 3 weeks after the derailment, former President Trump came to.
We have told you loud and clear you are not forgotten.
President Biden didn't visit till a year later and declined to make a disaster declaration for the town.
We will rebuild together.
And while his transportation secretary, Pete Buttigieg, was at the Baltimore bridge collapse within hours, it took nearly 3 weeks for him to visit East Palestine.
We're going to be here day in, day out, year in, year out.
Ohio's 2 senators, one from each party, took the lead in putting maximum pressure on the government and the railroad company.
The company followed the Wall Street business model. Boost profits by cutting costs at all costs. The consequences for places like East Palestine be damned.
Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw visited the town several times and promised to pay for the cleanup and for residents' costs. So far, the company says it has spent more than $1 billion on the cleanup, most of that to deal with contamination. Our videos from then and now show big changes, but on the town's outskirts, crews are still hard at work. The scene behind me here, drastically different than it was just a year ago. They've since removed about 176,000 tons of contaminated soil. That's about 350 million pounds, a tremendous amount, and they say there's still a lot of work to be done. When we first met Carrie Lentz, she and her family were living in a hotel well away from East Palestine. We can hear the train right now.
Correct. Yep. So we're perfect timing. We're less than
They returned to their home several months ago.
It feels good to be back. It feels very good to be back and refreshing. It's nice to see the neighbors.
In terms of her family's health, Lentz says she's most concerned about her son, who's developed asthma. She monitors the interior air quality 24/7.
So green is good.
One of the things that we talked about last time was you said you didn't really know if you could trust everything you were being told back then.
Yes.
Do you still feel that way?
It's hard. There's conflicting information. There's still neighbors that aren't home and that have said that their homes are testing back, contaminated. Do we fully trust what they've been telling us? The railroad, they're here. They didn't turn their backs on us. They've been doing the work. EPA has been here. They haven't left us. But just something like in the back of my mind, it's just like, can it really truly be good in what they say?
That idea of not being able to trust what you're being told is something we heard more than once in East Palestine. And recently, the biggest decision made at the time of the disaster has been called into question. In March, the head of the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, said it turns out doing a controlled burn of chemicals wasn't needed because the tank cars were not getting dangerously hot, as had been thought.
Over the course of 22 hours, that tank car was cooling, not to mention the other 4 tank cars that were only between 64 and 69 degrees.
When you heard that, what'd you think?
It's absolutely infuriating because if you look back at everything that's happened, I think the cleanup would be done if the 5 tankers of vinyl chloride were not engulfed in flames.
The response here raises questions about how officials deal with transportation disasters that happen regularly. On the rails, there have been several incidents since East Palestine, including one in Alabama and another in Pennsylvania, both involving Norfolk Southern. A derailment in Colorado involved BNSF, a different company, and 1 man died. At the federal level, a new Rail Safety Act was introduced after the East Palestine accident. It has bipartisan support, but Congress has yet to pass it. Has this experience left you more or less confident in your government?
Probably a little bit less. I mean, I feel bad saying that, but because there are just big mistakes made. I wish it would have been handled better. So I have a little less confidence in their ability to handle those situations.
And for those who experienced the worst symptoms or who still can't come home, this disaster isn't over.
No one deserves this. There are children that have nosebleeds daily. There's seizures. There's cancers that are already here. Can you 100% say that it's from the derailment? They know that you can't. Do people feel it is in their hearts? Yeah.
President Biden promised to have taxpayers pay the full cost of repairing this bridge or rebuilding it. Almost immediately, did he do the same thing in East Palestine?
No, he didn't. And so far, the federal government has not said how much taxpayer money has been spent. The majority of it has been by the rail company, Norfolk Southern, more than $1 billion so far.
So how much will this pledge to rebuild that bridge cost taxpayers?
The bridge itself could be anywhere between $400 and $800 million, although insurance will likely pay for a lot of that. The real cost is going to be lost wages and business from the port. That's what taxpayers are going to be on the hook for.
All right, Scott, thanks. After a break, what was wrong with millions of CPAP machines? Millions of people rely on continuous positive airway pressure, or CPAP machines, to sleep better at night. So when there was a huge safety recall of one brand, it raised a lot of questions, some of them still open today. Liz Mohan is a video journalist at the investigative nonprofit ProPublica and part of the team that covered the story.
This is a story about patients and doctors who are impacted by the Philips Respironics recall of their CPAP machines and respiratory breathing devices. For over 11 years, they withheld complaints from users who reported defects, and they withheld that information from the public.
I had patients who had black particles over the years. We didn't know what it was. The DreamStation was one of the most commonly used positive airway pressure devices in the United States, if not the world. Nearly 100% of our patients were on DreamStation devices at the time of the recall.
What was the heart of the complaints about these CPAP machines?
The heart of the complaints were that users were finding black particles, black specks, dust and contamination in their machines. Even users who washed their machines every day, every other day, they saw these tiny black particles in the tubing of their machines, and they reported them.
The implication is they were breathing that stuff in?
Yeah, the implication, so the foam that was used in the machines is an industrial foam that is also found in sofas and mattresses. And at high heat, the foam can break down into these tiny disintegrated particles that are known to be toxic and potentially carcinogenic. We were looking for a patient who was sick, which is Mark Edwards, and Mark Edwards has pre-existing conditions. And a lot of people on sleep apnea have pre-existing conditions, and if you have pre-existing conditions, you need a CPAP machine even more to be able to heal, to be able to manage that.
Initially, I thought that the CPAP machine was kind of like a gimmick. So I just thought, come on, what happened to people in the colonial times when they didn't have a CPAP machine? And my lung doctor said they died. I was like, well, that makes sense.
So Mark really shows someone who is sick and is potentially sicker because of this machine.
I had 3 top specialists tell me that the Royal Philips CPAP machine destroyed the walls of my lungs. So I went to this guy, and he recommended Dr. Candace Hurlick, and she looked down my throat, and she found this huge growth in my throat. She did surgery on me. Once the walls of your lungs are shot, it's a matter of time.
What was the company's response, did you discover, as part of the co-investigation that you did, when they began to get these complaints from consumers?
Philips received over 3,700 complaints over the span of 11 years. And they first launched an investigation in 2019, which was 9 years after the first complaint. And their response was that complaints leading up to the recall were few and far between, and that they responded as soon as they understood the potential significance of the problem.
What would you say is the overarching lesson you learned as you found out more about this case?
For these patients, I think about how they were not given a right to know sooner the risks of their machines. If they had been told even a few years sooner, we don't know if the machine could harm you, but we're letting you make that decision.
In a statement, Philips said it does not agree with the characterizations in ProPublica's reporting that the company's priority is patient safety and quality, and that it, quote, regrets any distress and concern for patients, their families, and care providers in this matter, and deeply apologizes. When we return, lies taught in medical school. Despite the record amount of money Americans spend on health care, statistics show we're sicker, dying sooner, and seeing an explosion in chronic diseases. Dr. Robert Lufkin puts some of the blame on what doctors are taught in school. He should know. He's been a med school professor at University of California, Los Angeles, and University of Southern California. Now he's written a new book on how and why medicine has gotten things so wrong, Lies I Taught in Medical School. Can you name a couple of quick hits as to things that you taught that turned out to be wrong?
People teach that a calorie is just a calorie. If you want to lose weight, just eat fewer calories. I don't believe that's right. In fact, calories depend on the type of macronutrient they are. So a carbohydrate calorie is very different from a fat calorie or a protein calorie. For example, if I eat a bag of potato chips at 500 calories, most of it will go to my fat because it triggers insulin. Whereas if I eat several raw eggs, it will not go to my fat and instead will be used for energy. Another myth or another lie that is still taught is that in order to lose weight, exercise more and eat less. Well, you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet. The key is the types of foods that we eat, specifically the foods that drive insulin. Insulin is a drug that makes us lay down fat, and certain foods drive insulin. So you avoid the drugs that drive insulin. The drugs that drive insulin are carbohydrates primarily. When you stop carbohydrates, the insulin goes down and most people will lose weight.
If we agree, at least on some level, that maybe medical schools are not keeping up with some of these emphases on looking at root causes and trying to figure out what's behind things rather than just diagnosing and prescribing, what do you think is driving the curriculum and how should it change?
Well, the curriculum, unfortunately, is driven by a lot of vested interests that generate revenue from, let's say, the sales of pharmaceuticals like insulin or metformin, drugs used to treat diabetes. There are also vested interests in companies that benefit from the sale of certain food products like junk foods and carbohydrate-rich foods and unhealthy seed oils. These influence the educational program through various quasi-scientific organizations that contribute to the curriculum. Unfortunately, there are not an equal number of lobbying groups for lifestyle, because lifestyle, you actually save money. If I eat less food or if I fast, I don't spend money. So there's no group really that's as effective as someone that makes money selling insulin to offset a program that will recommend fasting and low carbohydrate diets.
Are you saying these vested interests maybe form a nonprofit or some kind of advisory group that then lobbies or presents their information to a medical school, or how does it specifically drive the curriculum?
Well, it's even more insidious than that. I think the American Diabetic Association, which is seen as the main scientific diabetic research organization. It's funded by companies like the leading provider of renal dialysis. It's also funded by insulin makers. So you see this American Diabetic Association giving dubious food recommendations like to their diabetic patients, like it's okay to have sugar in your meal, just increase your insulin dose to, quote, cover it. I don't agree with those recommendations, and I think those are ultimately not in the best interest of the patient.
Dr. Lufkin says the idea for his book came after he was prescribed drugs for his prediabetes, high cholesterol, arthritis, and high blood pressure. He says he reversed all of those without medicine after making changes based on metabolic health and nutrition, like giving up junk food. After a break, an update on our reporting about America's silent minority. An update now to our story, Silent Minority, about some minority groups recasting Asian Americans as white adjacent due to their success. As part of our reporting, we told you about a top high school, a magnet science and technology school in Virginia called Thomas Jefferson. Over time, the student body came to be 74% Asian under merit-based admissions. So in 2020, the school system tossed out the entrance exams and installed a controversial new system that would result in fewer Asians. Under the new admissions policy, the proportion of blacks and Hispanics quadrupled, while Asian student admissions cratered by nearly 20 percentage points.
I could talk a lot about what I've seen in anti-Asian racism. Like, it's pretty blatant.
Even though he's black, Harry Jackson is part of a group fighting Thomas Jefferson's new admissions process that benefits African Americans over Asians. His son attends TJ.
He's in the class of 2024. That was the last class that was admitted under the merit-based system.
What is the problem you see with wanting the school population to look like the society at large?
What's the problem? First of all, I would say in the K through 12, there's no compelling interest to do that. That's what local area high schools are for. TJ is a STEM school for those that have an aptitude in STEM opportunities. It should not be based off of racial gerrymandering. If it's 100% Asian, it's because you have that number that is there that are performing.
Since our report, the Supreme Court ruled Thomas Jefferson, or TJ, can keep its new admissions policy that some critics call racist against Asians. By the way, TJ has now fallen out of its longtime first-place position for high schools as ranked by U.S. News & World Report. Coming up next week on Full Measure, startling whistleblower allegations about a VA medical center and your tax money. Do you remember the first moment when you saw something that seemed very strange or suspicious?
Oh, yeah. I'll never forget it. We walked in there, and sure enough, I took pictures of them. I'm like, this is insane.
An eye-opening look at the allegations vehemently denied by those accused next week on Full Measure. Until next time, we'll be searching for more stories that hold powers accountable. Thanks for watching. I'm Sharyl Attkisson.